You dare. The sound of skin striking skin echoed through the sacred forest like thunder. The old woman stumbled backward, her weathered hand pressed against her cheek, eyes wide with shock and pain. How dare you even speak to me? Princess Zainabu's voice was venomous, her jeweled hand still raised. A filthy, worthless beggar asking me for food. The forest held its breath. Birds stopped singing. Wind ceased rustling through the leaves, and somewhere deep in the ancient trees, something stirred, something that had been waiting for this exact moment. The old woman slowly lifted her head, and her eyes began to glow with an otherworldly light. "Child," she whispered, her voice suddenly carrying the weight of centuries, "you have just made a terrible mistake. Welcome to TJ's story, where African folktales come alive with powerful lessons that echo through generations. I'm TJ, and today's story will show you how one moment of cruelty can curse an entire lifetime, and how true transformation can break even the darkest of spells. If you're new here, subscribe and join our community of storytellers from across the world. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. In the heart of West Africa, where the Niger River kissed the edges of 7 prosperous kingdoms, there lived a princess whose beauty was matched only by her cruelty. Her name was Zainabu, and she was the only daughter of King Ademi, the most powerful ruler the region had ever known. From the moment she drew her first breath, Zainabu had been showered with everything a child could desire. Golden toys from the east, silk dresses from distant traders, servants who would do anything to please her. King Ademi, having lost his beloved wife during childbirth, poured all his love and grief into spoiling his only child. He could deny her nothing. And so, love, pure, desperate, excessive love, created a monster. By the time Zainabu reached her 20th year, she had become a terror that stalked the palace corridors in jeweled slippers. Servants trembled at the sound of her footsteps. Maids wept in corners after facing her wrath. Guards looked away when she passed, knowing that even eye contact could bring punishment. "You looked at me," she would shriek. "Do you think you're worthy to meet my gaze?" And then would come the slap, sharp and humiliating, followed by days of punishment, reduced rations, extra work, public humiliation in the courtyard. 3 maidens served her most closely, and they bore the brunt of her daily cruelty. Mama Kemi was the eldest, a woman of 40 with wisdom in her eyes and patience in her heart. She had served in the palace since before Zainabu was born, and she remembered when the little princess had been kind, before privilege poisoned her soul. Mama Kemi's arms bore the marks of Zainabu's rage, bruises from thrown objects, burns from accidentally spilled hot oil. Ife was 30, silent as a shadow, her eyes haunted by years of verbal abuse. She no longer flinched when Zainabu screamed. She had learned to make herself invisible, to move through rooms like smoke. But at night, alone, she still cried into her pillow, wondering what she had done in a past life to deserve this torture. Nara was the youngest at 18, gentle and fearful, with tears always threatening to spill from her soft brown eyes. She had been in Zainabu's service for only 6 months, and already she had learned that kindness was weakness, that compassion was a liability, that survival meant silence. The entire kingdom lived under a shadow of fear. Not of King Ademi, who was known for his fairness and wisdom, but of his daughter, the girl who could ruin lives with a word, who found pleasure in others' pain, who seemed to lack the very thing that made humans human: empathy. The palace elders whispered warnings among themselves. They spoke of the sacred forest that bordered the kingdom, where the ancient spirits dwelled, spirits who judged the hearts of men and women, who punished the wicked and protected the humble. They spoke of Iya Iroko, the guardian spirit of the great Iroko tree, she who tested souls and demanded humility. The princess should not go near that forest, old Baba Tewa warned the king one evening. The spirits there do not recognize earthly royalty, they answer only to the royalty of character. But King Ademi, blinded by love, waved away such concerns. The spirits know she is young, they would not harm my daughter. One scorching afternoon, when the sun hung in the sky like a brass coin and heat shimmered off the palace stones, Princess Zainabu swept into the kitchen where Mama Kemi was preparing the evening meal. I want mangoes, Zainabu announced. Mama Kemi bowed. Yes, princess, I will have the market vendors. Not from the market, Zainabu's voice cracked like a whip. Market mangoes are for common people. I want the wild mangoes from the sacred forest, the golden ones that grow on the trees near the ancient Iroko. The kitchen went silent. Even the fire seemed to pause in its crackling. Princess, Mama Kemi said carefully, the elders say we should not disturb the sacred forest. Those mangoes belong to. I don't care what the elders say. Zainabu's eyes flashed with rage. I am a princess. I want those mangoes and you will get them for me. Take Ife and Nara, go now. And if you return empty-handed, you will spend the night in the stocks. Mama Kemi looked into the princess's eyes and saw no room for negotiation, no space for reason. She saw only the entitled rage of someone who had never been told no in her entire life. Yes, princess, she said quietly, her heart heavy with dread. Within the hour, the three maidens stood at the edge of the sacred forest, baskets in hand, looking into the deep shadows between the ancient trees. The forest seemed to watch them, waiting. Birds called out in warning. The wind carried whispers that sounded almost like words. Behind them, Princess Zainabu sat in her covered palanquin, fanning herself impatiently. Well, are you going to stand there like fools all day? Gio. Mama Kemi took a deep breath and stepped forward, crossing the invisible boundary where the kingdom ended and the spirit's domain began. Ife and Nara followed, their hands clasped together in fear. Princess Zainabu, bored with waiting, climbed out of her palanquin and followed them into the forest, her golden sandals crunching on fallen leaves. The sacred forest closed around them like a living thing. And somewhere in the shadows, ancient eyes opened. Somewhere in the darkness, Iya Iroko stirred from her slumber, sensing the presence of a proud heart entering her domain. The test was about to begin. The sacred forest breathed. That was the only way to describe it. The air moved in rhythms that matched no earthly wind. Ancient Iroko trees rose like cathedral pillars, their massive trunks wrapped in vines that seemed to pulse with life. Shafts of golden sunlight pierced through the canopy, illuminating particles of pollen that danced like tiny spirits. The ground was carpeted with moss so thick it swallowed sound, making every footstep feel intrusive, unwelcome. Mama Kemi felt it first, the weight of being watched. Not by eyes, but by something older, something that existed before eyes were ever created. There, Zainabu's voice shattered the sacred silence. She pointed imperiously at a mango tree that stood in a clearing, its branches heavy with golden fruit that seemed to glow from within. Those are the ones I want. The tree was magnificent, but it was also dangerous. Its lowest branches hung at least 12 feet above the ground, and the trunk was smooth, almost deliberately difficult to climb. Princess, perhaps we should, Mama Kemi began. Climb, Zainabu's word was ice. Or do I need to have your grandchildren removed from the servants' quarters? Mama Kemi's blood ran cold. Her daughter's 3 children lived in the palace compound. It was not an idle threat. With trembling hands, the older woman approached the tree. Nara rushed to help, cupping her hands to give Mama Kemi a boost. Ife found a thick vine that could serve as a rope. Together, they managed to get Mama Kemi up onto the first branch. The climb was treacherous. Mama Kemi's arms shook with effort, her breath came in gasps. Twice she nearly fell, but finally she reached the golden mangoes. Bring them down, Zainabu commanded. The perfect ones only. Mama Kemi carefully plucked a mango and lowered it down to Ife, who placed it gently in the basket. It was beautiful, golden orange skin without a single blemish, fragrant enough to make mouths water. Zainabu snatched it from the basket, examined it with narrowed eyes, then hurled it against a tree. Too small. Mama Kemi swallowed her shock and picked another. This one was larger, perfectly shaped. Zainabu took one look and threw it to the ground. The color is uneven. Are you blind? 5 mangoes, 7, 10, each one rejected with increasing contempt, each one thrown away like garbage. Mama Kemi's arms trembled from exhaustion. Sweat poured down her face, mixing with tears of frustration. "Please, Princess," Nara whispered. "Mama Kemi is tired, perhaps. Perhaps you'd like to join your mother in the stocks," Zainabu snapped. And that was when they heard it. A voice, thin and trembling with age and hunger. "Please, kind people, could you spare just one mango?" They turned to see an old woman emerging from between the trees. She was ancient beyond measure, skin like dried leather, back bent almost double, dressed in rags that might once have been cloth. Her eyes were clouded with cataracts, and she leaned heavily on a twisted walking stick. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. "Please," the old woman said again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am so hungry, just one small mango, even a bruised one would be a blessing." Mama Kemi's heart broke. "Of course, grandmother," she called down from the tree. "Let me." "No." Zainabu's voice cut through the forest like a blade. She advanced on the old woman, her face twisted with disgust. "You think you can just walk up and beg from me? Do you know who I am?" The old woman bowed her head. "Forgive me, child. I meant no offense. I am simply hungry." "Child," Zainabu's laugh was cruel. "I am Princess Zainabu, daughter of King Ademi, ruler of 7 kingdoms. And you are nothing. A bag of bones wrapped in filthy rags. You probably have diseases. You smell of poverty." "Zainabu, please." Mama Kemi started to climb down. "Stay where you are," Zainabu screamed. She circled the old woman like a predator. "Look at you, so old and useless. Why are you even still alive? What purpose do you serve? You should have had the decency to die years ago instead of polluting the world with your presence." Tears rolled down the old woman's weathered cheeks. "I only asked for one mango, child." "Stop calling me child," Zainabu shrieked. "And you want to know what I think of beggars? I think they are weak. I think they are lazy. I think the world would be better off if people like you simply disappeared." The old woman swayed, as if the words had physical weight. Nara couldn't bear it anymore. She reached into the basket and pulled out one of the rejected mangoes. "Here, grandmother, please take." Zainabu's hand shot out and grabbed Nara's wrist, crushing it until the young girl cried out in pain. The mango fell to the ground. "That mango is mine," Zainabu hissed. "Everything here is mine. This forest is mine. These mangoes are mine. Even the air you breathe, old woman, belongs to me by right." She picked up the fallen mango and held it in front of the old woman's face, so close the beggar could surely smell its sweetness. "You want this?" Zainabu asked softly, her voice dripping with venom. The old woman said nothing, just looked at the fruit with desperate, hungry eyes. And then Princess Zainabu did something that would change her life forever. She raised her jeweled hand high and brought it crashing across the old woman's face with all her strength. Crack! The sound echoed through the sacred forest like a gunshot. The old beggar stumbled backward, nearly falling. Her hand went to her cheek, and when she pulled it away, there was blood on her fingers. For a moment, the world stood absolutely still. Then the forest changed. The temperature dropped so suddenly that frost began forming on the leaves. The golden sunlight turned silver, then gray, then almost black. Every bird fell silent. Every insect stopped buzzing. The very air became thick, heavy, hard to breathe. And the old woman began to change. Her bent back straightened. Her clouded eyes cleared, revealing irises that glowed with ancient amber light. Her rags transformed into robes of bark and leaves, woven with threads of pure moonlight. She grew taller, more solid, more real than anything around her. The walking stick in her hand was no longer twisted wood. It was the living branch of an iroko tree, pulsing with primordial power. "My name," the woman said, and her voice now carried the weight of mountains, the depth of oceans, the age of forests, "is Iya Iroko. I am the spirit of humility, the judge of hearts, the guardian of this sacred place." Zainabu stumbled backward, her face white with terror. No, I didn't know." "You knew I was hungry, you knew I was old, you knew I was helpless." Iya Iroko's eyes blazed. "And still you chose cruelty. Not just words, child, not just refusal. You chose violence against someone who could not defend herself. Please, I'm sorry. Are you sorry? The spirit's voice boomed through the forest. Or are you simply afraid? Zainabu opened her mouth, but no words came out. Deep down, in the part of herself she usually silenced, she knew the truth. She was only afraid. I have watched humanity for 10,000 years. Iya Iroko said, I have seen cruelty and kindness, pride and humility, hatred and love. But rarely have I seen a heart as thoroughly poisoned as yours, Princess Zainabu. The spirit raised her staff, and the forest itself seemed to lean in, listening. You take pride in your youth, your beauty, your power. You use them as weapons to hurt others. Very well. Let us see how you fare when those weapons are taken from you. No, please, I'll change. I'll be better. Will you? Iya Iroko's smile was terrible. Then prove it. You have 90 days. 90 days to transform your heart from stone to flesh. 90 days to learn what it means to be human. The spirit's staff touched the ground, and power rippled outward like a shockwave. If you succeed, if you truly change, not just in words but in the very essence of your soul, the curse will break and you will live. But if you fail, Iya Iroko's eyes grew sad. If you remain the same cruel, prideful creature you are now, on the 91st day you will die. No, Zainabu screamed. The curse begins now. Iya Iroko vanished. And Princess Zainabu looked down at her hands and began to scream. The first thing Zainabu noticed was her hands. They were changing before her eyes. The smooth, perfect skin that she had spent hours each day moisturizing with expensive oils and butters was developing fine lines. As she watched in horror, those lines deepened into wrinkles. Her fingers, once delicate and adorned with rings, began to look knobby, the joints swelling slightly. No, 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 no. She touched her face and felt the same thing happening. The taut skin of her cheeks was loosening, developing creases around her mouth and eyes. But that wasn't the worst of it. Her magnificent golden dress, the one she had commissioned from the finest weavers in the kingdom, threaded with real gold and adorned with precious stones, was transforming. The gold thread turned to rough hemp. The silk became coarse cotton, then burlap. The jewels fell from their settings and scattered on the forest floor like worthless pebbles. Within seconds, she stood in rags that a beggar would have been ashamed to wear. Princess, Mama Kemi climbed down from the tree as fast as her old bones would allow. Princess, what's happening to you? But when Ife and Nara rushed to Zainabu's side, they gasped and stepped back. The princess, who had been 20 years old just moments ago, now looked 30, 35. The change was subtle but unmistakable. Her face had lost some of its youthful roundness. Lines had appeared at the corners of her eyes. Her neck showed the faintest hints of aging. And it wasn't stopping. We have to get back to the palace, Mama Kemi said. The king must know. Perhaps the healers can. Look at her, Ife whispered, unable to tear her eyes away. She's still aging. They half-carried, half-dragged Zainabu back through the forest. With every step, she grew older. By the time they reached the forest's edge, she looked 40. By the time they got her into the palanquin, she could have been 45. The guards at the palace gate didn't recognize her. State your business, one of them said, barring the way. Are you blind? Zainabu shrieked, her voice already sounding rougher, older. I am Princess Zainabu, let me through. The guards looked at each other, then at the middle-aged woman in rags before them, then burst out laughing. You, one guard guffawed. You're the princess, and I'm the king. Get lost, old woman, before we arrest you for impersonating royalty. I am the princess, Zainabu screamed, but her voice cracked. She was crying now, tears streaming down her aging face. Mama Kemi, tell them. Mama Kemi stepped forward. Please, it's true. This is Princess Zainabu. She's been cursed. We must see the king immediately. The guards' laughter died. They looked closer at the woman's face, searching for familiar features beneath the rapidly aging exterior. One of them paled. By the ancestors, it is her. They practically carried Zainabu through the palace corridors. Servants stopped in their tracks, staring. Some screamed. Others made signs against evil. Word spread like wildfire, the princess was cursed. King Adami was in his throne room when they burst in. He rose from his seat, confused by the commotion. "Father," Zainabu stumbled toward him, and he recoiled. "Who are you? What mockery is this?" "It's me, your daughter. Father, please look at me." She grabbed his hand, and he stared down at the wrinkled, liver-spotted fingers clutching his own. Recognition dawned in his eyes, followed by horror so profound he staggered backward. "Zainabu." "Help me," she sobbed. "Please, father, help me." What followed was a parade of the kingdom's finest. Healers with their herbs and potions, priests with their prayers and incantations, diviners with their bones and shells, even a powerful witch doctor from a neighboring kingdom who claimed to have reversed curses before. None of them could help. The aging continued, relentless as the tide. By the end of the first week, Princess Zainabu looked to be in her early 30s, her beauty already fatting like a flower past its prime. By the end of the second week, she appeared to be 50. Her hair, once thick and lustrous, had begun to thin and show streaks of gray. Her skin had lost its elasticity. Her body ached in ways she'd never experienced. By the fourth week, she looked 70. And that was when everything truly changed. The servants who had once trembled at her footsteps now walked past her without acknowledgement. The guards who had bowed deeply when she passed now barely glanced her way. Even her father, though he still loved her, seemed unable to look at her for long without his face twisting in grief and something else, something that looked disturbingly like disgust. Zainabu found herself invisible for the first time in her life. One morning, she shuffled into the great dining hall for breakfast. A young maid, new to the palace, clearly was setting out the morning meal. When Zainabu reached for a piece of bread, the girl slapped her hand away. "That's not for you, old woman. That's for the royal family. Get back to the servants' quarters where you belong." Zainabu stood there, shocked into silence, cradling her stung hand. The girl didn't even recognize her. To this maid's eyes, she was just another elderly servant who had forgotten her place. "But Zainabu started. "You're about to be unemployed if you don't get out of here," the maid snapped. "Go on, shoo." Zainabu left, her cheeks burning with humiliation. And as she walked through the corridors she had once commanded like a tyrant, she heard the whispers. "Did you see that old woman? So ugly, time has not been kind to her. Why do they even keep her around? She's useless. I heard she was once beautiful. Hard to believe, looking at her now." The words that she had once spoken about others were now being spoken about her. The cruelty she had dispensed so freely was being returned to her 100-fold. And for the first time in her privileged life, Princess Zainabu understood what powerlessness felt like. She looked in a bronze mirror one evening and barely recognized the face staring back. 70 years old, maybe older, deep wrinkles carved into weathered skin. Eyes that had once sparkled with malicious delight now looked dull, tired, afraid. 65 days, she whispered to her reflection. I have 65 days left. But looking at herself, truly seeing herself for the first time, she realized something that made her blood run cold. She didn't know how to chain. Pride wasn't just something she did, it was something she was. Cruelty wasn't a behavior she could simply stop. It was woven into every fiber of her being, built into her personality over 20 years of unchecked privilege and power. How do you change who you are at the very core? How do you transform a heart that has known only selfishness into something capable of true compassion? That night, Princess Zainabu, who now looked like a woman approaching her 80s, sat in her chambers and cried. Not tears of self-pity, not tears of fear, though she felt both, but tears of genuine despair. Because she was beginning to understand the true cruelty of the curse. Iya Iroko hadn't just stolen her youth and beauty. The spirit had forced her to see the world through the eyes of those she had hurt, had made her experience the pain she had so casually inflicted on others. The curse wasn't just punishment. It was a mirror. And Zainabu finally saw herself clearly for the first time in her life, and the reflection was monstrous. Mama Kemi found her there, hunched and weeping in the darkness. Child, the older woman said softly, sitting beside her. Don't call me that, Zainabu said bitterly. Look at me, I'm probably older than you now. You're younger than you look, and you still have time. 64 days, and I don't know what to do, I don't know how to change. Zainabu looked at Mama Kemi with desperate eyes. How do you do it? How do you stay kind when people have been cruel to you? How do you forgive? Mama Kemi was quiet for a long moment. You start small, one choice at a time, one kindness at a time, not because you expect anything in return, not even because you expect to be forgiven. You do it because it's the right thing to do. But what if it's not enough? What if I can't change in time? The older woman took Zainabu's wrinkled hand in her own. Then at least you will have tried. At least in your final days, you will have been a better person than you were. Zainabu squeezed her hand, drawing strength from the touch. I have been so cruel to you, Mama Kemi, all those years. Why are you helping me now? Mama Kemi smiled sadly. Because despite everything, I remember the little girl you used to be, before the privilege, before the pride. You were kind once. Perhaps you can be kind again. That night, Princess Zainabu made a decision. She couldn't guarantee she would break the curse. She couldn't promise she would survive, but she could try to be better than she had been. She could try to learn what it meant to be truly human. Even if no one ever forgave her. Even if she died trying. Can someone who has been cruel their whole life truly change? Is it ever too late to become better? And what would you do if you had only 90 days to prove you deserved to live? Drop your thoughts below. This story challenges all of us to examine our own hearts. And if you're feeling this tale, hit that subscribe button for TJ's story. We've got more powerful African folktales coming that will make you think, feel, and maybe even change. The sun had barely risen when Zainabu appeared in the servants' courtyard, her aged body wrapped in a simple cloth. She looked to be in her late 70s now, her back slightly bent, her movements slow and deliberate. Mama Kemi was already there, hauling water from the well, the same task Zainabu had watched her perform 1,000 times without ever offering help. Let me, Zainabu said quietly. Mama Kemi turned, surprised. Princess, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Zainabu reached for the rope, and her hands, once soft and jeweled, now looked like Mama Kemi's, weathered, scarred, capable. Please show me how. It was harder than it looked. The bucket was heavy, the rope rough against her palms. Her arms, weakened by age, trembled with the effort. But she pulled, and pulled, and pulled until the bucket reached the surface, water sloshing over the sides. Good, Mama Kemi said, and there was something in her voice, not quite forgiveness, but perhaps the beginning of something softer. They worked side by side for an hour, hauling water, scrubbing floors, preparing the morning meal. Zainabu's body ached in ways she'd never imagined. Her knees throbbed. Her back screamed in protest. Sweat poured down her face, and her breath came in ragged gasps. But when a young kitchen girl, no more than 12, brought them cool water to drink and said, "Thank you, grandmother, for helping us," Zainabu froze. Thank you. 2 simple words, but in her entire life, no one had ever thanked her for anything. She had always been the one receiving service, never giving it. Tears sprang to her eyes. You don't have to thank me. The girl smiled, a pure and genuine thing. But I want to. You worked so hard. Your hands are bleeding. Zainabu looked down. The girl was right. Blisters had formed and burst, leaving raw, weeping wounds. She hadn't even noticed. It's nothing, she whispered, but her voice broke. The girl gently took Zainabu's hands and wrapped them in clean cloth. There, that should help. As the child walked away, Zainabu stared at her bandaged hands and wept. Not from pain, but from the overwhelming realization of what she had missed. All those years of being served, of taking, of demanding, she had never known the simple, profound joy of giving. Of being useful to someone other than herself. Days passed, then weeks. Zainabu threw herself into service with a desperation born of both guilt and the ticking clock. She swept floors. She mended clothes. She helped in the kitchen, burning herself more than once but learning. 47 days left. She looked 85 now. One afternoon, she was in the market, something she'd never done before, when she saw a commotion near the fountain. A crowd had gathered, shouting angrily. At the center stood a young girl, barely 14, tears streaming down her face. Her basket of oranges had spilled, and several had rolled into the path of a merchant's cart, getting crushed. "You'll pay for those oranges," the merchant roared. 5 gold pieces." "I don't have 5 gold pieces," the girl sobbed. "Please, it was an accident." "Then you'll work for me until the debt is paid. 5 years should do it." The crowd murmured approval. The girl fell to her knees, begging. Something in Zainabu's chest cracked open. She pushed through the crowd, her aged body moving with unexpected force. "Stop!" The merchant turned, irritated. "Who are you, old woman?" "Someone who knows what it's like to be powerless." Zainabu reached into the small pouch at her waist. Her father had given her a few coins, though she'd rarely needed them, and counted out 5 gold pieces. "Here, for the oranges. Now leave the girl alone." The merchant snatched the coins, examined them, and walked away grumbling. The girl, her name was Simi, stared up at Zainabu with wide, grateful eyes. Thank you. How can I ever repay you?" "You don't need to repay me," Zainabu said, helping the girl gather her remaining oranges. "Just be kind to someone else when you have the chance. That's payment enough." As Simi ran off, her basket full and her face glowing with relief, Zainabu felt something she'd never experienced before. Pure, uncomplicated joy at someone else's happiness. No glory, no praise, no reward. Just the simple satisfaction of knowing she'd helped. 32 days left. She looked 90 now. Zainabu found Ife in the garden, tending to the flowers. The woman had barely spoken to her since the curse began, and Zainabu couldn't blame her. "Ife," she said softly. Ife didn't look up. "Yes, princess." "Don't call me that." Zainabu sat on the ground beside her. Sitting was easier than standing now. Her bones felt like brittle sticks. "I need to talk to you, and I need you to listen, even though I have no right to ask that of you." Ife's hands stilled on the roses. "I hurt you," Zainabu continued, her voice rough with emotion. "For years I hurt you, with my words, with my actions, with my cruelty. I told you that you were worthless. I told you that you were ugly. I told you that no one would ever love you. I made you cry yourself to sleep more times than I can count." Ife's shoulders began to shake. "And I was wrong about everything. You are not worthless. You are kind and gentle and patient beyond measure. You are not ugly. You have a beautiful soul that I was too blind to see. And if no one loves you, it's because this world doesn't deserve you." Zainabu's voice cracked. "I am so sorry, Ife. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I needed you to know that I see you now, really see you, and I am ashamed of what I did to you." Silence stretched between them like a chasm. Then Ife turned, tears streaming down her face. "Why now? Why wait until you're cursed to tell me this?" "Because I couldn't see before." Zainabu's own tears fell freely. "I was so drunk on power, so poisoned by pride, that I couldn't see anyone as human, including myself. The curse didn't make me cruel, Ife. It revealed that I already was, and it forced me to feel what I made others feel." Ife looked at her for a long moment, searching her face. "You really mean this, don't you? This isn't just about breaking the curse." "No," Zainabu said honestly. "If I die in 25 days, I will die. But I need to die knowing I tried to be better, even if it's too late." Ife reached out slowly, hesitantly, and took Zainabu's gnarled hand. "Thank you for finally seeing me." It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, maybe not ever, but it was acknowledgement, it was real. And for the first time since the curse began, Zainabu felt something like peace. 20 days left. Zainabu could barely walk now. Her body looked to be well over 90, skin like paper, bones visible beneath. But her eyes had changed. Where once there had been cruelty and pride, now there was understanding, compassion, humility. She sat with her father one evening, his hand clasped in hers. "I'm going back to the forest tomorrow," she told him. "No," King Adami said immediately. "You're too weak. The journey will kill you." "Then I'll die," Zainabu said simply. But I have to face her again. Iya Oroko, I have to tell her that I understand now, that I've changed. Not because I want to live, though I do, but because she deserves to know that her lesson wasn't wasted on me. The king wept. I'm losing you. You lost me years ago, father. When you loved me so much you forgot to teach me how to love others. She squeezed his hand. But maybe you're finding me again now, the real me, the one who was buried under all that privilege and pride. I should have been a better father. And I should have been a better daughter, but we can't change the past. We can only try to do better going forward. She smiled, even though it hurt. And if I die, father, remember this, I finally learned what it means to be human. That's worth more than any throne. The next morning, as the sun painted the sky gold and pink, Princess Zainabu, ancient, frail, but finally truly beautiful, began the long walk back to the sacred forest. Behind her, Mama Kemi, Ife, and Nara followed at a distance, ready to catch her if she fell. Ahead, the forest waited. And deep within it, under the mango tree, Iya Oroko opened her eyes and smiled. Every step was agony. Zainabu's body, ravaged by 90 years compressed into 70 days, protested every movement. Her lungs rattled with each breath. Her heart hammered irregularly in her chest. Twice she collapsed, and twice Mama Kemi helped her back to her feet. Let me carry you, the older woman pleaded. No, Zainabu gasped. I must walk this path myself. The sacred forest seemed different now, less threatening. The shadows that had once felt malevolent now felt watchful, patient. The ancient trees stood like witnesses, their branches swaying in a wind that carried whispers of judgment or perhaps mercy. Finally, she saw it, the mango tree, the same tree where her cruelty had unleashed the curse. Golden fruit still hung from its branches, glowing softly in the filtered sunlight. Zainabu stumbled to the base of the tree and collapsed, her frail body crumpling like a discarded cloth. She didn't have the strength to rise again. Iya Oroko, she called out, her voice barely a whisper. I am here. The air shimmered, and the spirit appeared, tall, powerful, timeless. Her amber eyes studied the broken woman before her. You return to me, child. I return, Zainabu confirmed. Not to beg for my life, not to plead for mercy. I return to tell you that I understand now. Understand what? Everything. Tears rolled down Zainabu's ancient face. I understand why you cursed me, not to punish me but to teach me, to force me to feel what I made others feel. Helplessness, invisibility, pain, humiliation. You didn't steal my beauty, Iya Oroko. You revealed that I never had any at all, not where it mattered, not in here. She pressed a gnarled hand to her chest, over her heart. The spirit's expression remained impassive. And what have you learned? That power without compassion is violence. That beauty without kindness is ugliness. That I spent 20 years of my life being less than human because I refused to see others as human. Zainabu's voice grew stronger, even as her body grew weaker. I learned that a single moment of cruelty can poison a lifetime. That pride is not strength, it's weakness wearing a crown. Pretty words, Iya Oroko said, but words are cheap, child. Actions are the truth. I know. Zainabu met the spirit's gaze without flinching. I helped servants I once abused. I protected a girl I would have once ignored. I apologized to people I hurt, knowing they might never forgive me. Not because I wanted to break the curse, but because it was right, because they deserved it, because I finally saw them. Silence fell. Even the forest seemed to hold its breath. And now, the spirit asked, now that you have walked this path, now that you have learned these lessons, do you think you deserve to live? Zainabu was quiet for a long moment. Then she shook her head. No, she said softly. I don't deserve to live, not after everything I've done. The people I've hurt, the lives I've damaged, the cruelty I've spread like poison, there's no coming back from that. No amount of good deeds can erase those scars. She looked up at Iya Oroko with clear, honest eyes. But I want to live anyway, not because I deserve it, but because I want the chance to do better, to help more people, to spend whatever years I have left trying to heal the wounds I've caused. I don't ask for your mercy because I've earned it. I ask for it because I finally understand what mercy means. The spirit studied her for what felt like an eternity. Then, slowly, Iya Iroko knelt beside her and placed a weathered hand on Zainabu's forehead. When I cursed you 70 days ago, you were afraid, terrified of losing your beauty, your youth, your power. You would have said anything, promised anything to save yourself. You were sorry you were caught, not sorry for what you'd done. I know, Zainabu whispered. But now, a smile touched the spirit's ancient face. Now you are truly changed. The fear is still there. I can see it in your eyes. You are still afraid to die. But it is not the fear that defines you anymore. You have become something you never were before, Princess Zainabu. What's that? Human, Iya Iroko said simply. Beautifully, painfully human. The spirit's hand began to glow with golden light, and warmth flooded through Zainabu's broken body. The light spread from her forehead to her chest, down her arms, through her legs. She gasped as pain she'd carried for 70 days suddenly released. Her skin began to smooth. Her hair darkened. Her bones straightened. The years peeled away like layers of dead bark falling from a tree, revealing fresh, living wood beneath. 20 years old again, young, beautiful. But different. Her eyes held depth they'd never had before. Her face showed traces of empathy carved by suffering. She was beautiful now not because of flawless skin or perfect features, but because something luminous shone through from within. You are restored, Iya Iroko said, rising. But remember this, princess. Not everyone receives a second chance. Most people die with their cruelty intact, their pride unbroken. You are rare, someone who is willing to be shattered in order to be remade. Zainabu touched her face, feeling smooth skin, then looked at her hands, young again, unblemished, then back at the spirit. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me. Thank the people who showed you kindness even when you showed them none. They are the ones who saved you. Iya Iroko began to fade. Use this second chance wisely, child, because third chances, those don't exist. And she was gone. Zainabu knelt beneath the mango tree, her young body trembling, and wept, not from relief, but from gratitude, and from the overwhelming weight of knowing that she had been given something infinitely precious, the opportunity to be better than she had been. Behind her, Mama Kemi, Ife, and Nara emerged from the trees, their faces wet with tears, their arms open. And for the first time in her life, Princess Zainabu ran to embrace her servants, her teachers, her friends. If you were given a second chance at life, truly given one, would you use it differently? Would you change who you are at your core, or would you slip back into old patterns? This is the question Zainabu's story asks all of us, because every day is a second chance if we're brave enough to take it. If this story moved you, drop a comment and let me know what you'd change about yourself if you had 90 days. And subscribe to TJ's story. We've got one more chapter to go, and you won't want to miss how Zainabu uses her second chance. Let's finish this journey together. The palace gates opened to receive Princess Zainabu, and this time, everyone recognized her. But they barely recognized who she had become. She stood in the great hall before her father, the servants, the guards, everyone who had witnessed her transformation. Her body was young again, radiant with restored beauty, but her eyes held something they'd never seen before, genuine humility. Father, she said, her voice clear and strong, I have returned, but I am not the daughter you lost 70 days ago. King Ademi embraced her, weeping with joy and relief. But Zainabu gently pulled away. She turned to face the assembled servants, and slowly, deliberately, she knelt before them. The hall erupted in gasps. I was a monster, she said loudly, so everyone could hear. I hurt you. I humiliated you. I treated you as less than human because I was less than human myself. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I promise you this, every day for the rest of my life, I will try to be worthy of the second chance I was given. She looked at Mama Kemi, Ife, and Nara. Thank you for showing me what humanity looks like, even when I showed you only cruelty. Mama Kemi stepped forward and helped Zainabu to her feet. Welcome back, princess. Not to who you were, but to who you've become. Years passed. King Ademi grew old and eventually passed peacefully in his sleep, his hand held by a daughter he was finally proud of. Zainabu inherited the 7 kingdoms, and under her rule, everything changed. She built schools for the poor, where children learned that knowledge was power, but kindness was strength. She established homes for the elderly, ensuring no one would suffer in their final years as she had learned to suffer. She opened the palace kitchens every evening, feeding anyone who was hungry, serving the food with her own hands. The people called her Queen Zainabu the Kind. Some of the older servants, who remembered the cruel princess she had been, called her Queen Zainabu the Transformed, and they meant it as the highest compliment. Every year, on the anniversary of her curse, Zainabu would journey alone into the sacred forest. She would kneel beneath the mango tree and leave offerings, food, cloth, gold, thanking Iya Iroko for the gift of transformation, however painful it had been. And sometimes, just sometimes, she would hear a voice on the wind. "Remember, child, true beauty never ages." Decades later, when Queen Zainabu finally died at the age of 73, the entire kingdom mourned. But they didn't mourn a tragedy. They celebrated a life that proved something profound. That people can change, that pride can be broken, that even the cruelest heart can learn to love. At her funeral, Mama Kemi, now ancient herself, spoke the final words. She was born a princess, cursed into wisdom, and died a queen. But more than that, she died human, and that was her greatest achievement. They buried her beneath a mango tree she had planted in the palace gardens, and every year, that tree bore the most beautiful golden fruit that she had commanded be given freely to anyone who asked, especially to the old, the poor, and the forgotten. Because Princess Zainabu had learned the hardest lesson of all, that true beauty isn't found in a mirror. It's found in how we treat those who can do nothing for us in return. And that lesson, unlike youth, truly never ages. Pride destroys faster than any curse, but humility heals deeper than any magic. We are not defined by who we were born as, but by who we choose to become, even if that choice comes at the cost of everything we thought made us valuable. Every slap we give echoes, every cruelty we inflict returns, but every act of kindness plants a seed that can grow into forests. Zainabu was given 90 days to change or die. How many days do you have left? And more importantly, what will you do with them? Thank you for journeying with me through this powerful tale of transformation. Have you ever had a moment that changed you forever? A time when you realized you needed to be better? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories inspire future talies. Where are you watching from? Drop your country or city. I love seeing our global TJ Story family grow. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more African folktales that challenge us to examine ourselves and become better. We explore stories of pride and humility, justice and mercy, cruelty and redemption, because the best stories don't just entertain us, they transform us. Until next time, remember, change is always possible, but only if you're willing to be broken first. This is TJ, and I'll see you in the next story.